Russia could launch its lethal new intermediate-range ballistic missile against Ukraine again soon, the Pentagon said Wednesday, citing a new U.S. intelligence assessment. Sabrina Singh, Pentagon spokeswoman, told reporters in a briefing that an attack could be carried out in the coming days. She added that the U.S. does not consider this missile, called the Oreshnik, a game-changer on the battlefield, but that the Russians are trying to use every weapon that they have in their arsenal to intimidate Ukraine. She said she couldn't provide any other details, including where Russia may strike. U.S. officials said earlier Wednesday that the U.S. was seeing the Russians make preparations for another launch of the missile, which was used for the first time last month. The officials spoke on condition of anonymity to discuss the sensitive information. The threat comes as both sides work to gain a battlefield advantage in the nearly 3-year war, which President-elect Donald Trump has vowed to end, and just days after the U.S. promised close to $1 billion in new security aid to Ukraine. Other Western allies have suggested negotiations to end the war could begin this winter. The Russian Defense Ministry also suggested that Moscow is prepared to retaliate because Ukraine used 6 US-made ATACMS missiles to strike a military air base in Taganrog in the southern Rostov region on Wednesday, injuring soldiers. It said 2 of the missiles were shot down by an air defense system and 4 others deflected by electronic warfare assets. Russia first fired the missile in a November 21 attack against the Ukrainian city of Dnipro. Surveillance camera video of the strike showed huge fireballs piercing the darkness and slamming into the ground at astonishing speed. It was the first time the weapon was used in combat. Within hours of the attack on the military facility, Russian President Vladimir Putin took the rare step of speaking on national TV to boast about the new, hypersonic missile. He warned the West that its next use could be against Ukraine's NATO allies who allowed Kiev to use their longer-range missiles to strike inside Russia. The attack came 2 days after Putin signed a revised version of Russia's nuclear doctrine that lowered the threshold for using nuclear weapons. The doctrine allows for a potential nuclear response by Moscow even to a conventional attack on Russia by any nation that is supported by a nuclear power. That strike also came soon after President Joe Biden agreed to loosen restrictions on Ukraine's use of American-made longer-range weapons to strike deeper into Russian territory, and just 1 day after the U.S. said it was giving Ukraine anti-personnel mines to help it slow Russia's battlefield advances.
So Putin has said publicly that Russia intends to launch another experimental Oreshnik missile, as you mentioned. It's possible that Russia could do it in the coming days. I don't have an exact date for you. I think it's important to note that should Russia choose to launch this type of missile, it's not going to be a game changer on the battlefield. It's just yet another attempt to inflict harm and casualties in Ukraine. We've seen this before. They're trying to use every weapon that they have in their arsenal to intimidate Ukraine. But of course, Ukraine, with the United States, other partners around the world, continues to have our support as they, fight every single day on the battlefield.
Who is a Republican from New Jersey, was just on the air saying that Iran launched a...
Yeah, this was based on an intelligence assessment that it's possible that Russia could use this Oreshnik missile in the coming days. And so, they have used this type of capability before. I know you reported on it then. Again, I think the point of us getting out this information is to also ensure that, this is not going to be a silver bullet change to the battlefield. The war is going to continue, and our support for Ukraine is going to continue.
Does that intelligence include any assessment of what targets it might strike?
I'm just not going to be able to give you more details on that. I mean, local law enforcement, FBI is conducting an investigation and looking into this. I mean, there's initial assessments are that these are drones and potentially, could be small airplanes. It could be a number of things that people are seeing and reporting. But again, that's, for the investigation to uncover. And so I just can't speak to that more. In terms of, a frenzy, I think it's completely right, that people report these sightings and that there is an investigation into, what they are seeing. But I think what's also important to remember is that at no time were our military installations or our people ever under any threat. And if they were, of course, the base commanders have the ability to engage these drones if they do pose a threat. Secretary Austin returns home today from his historic 13th trip.
France flew out 2 of its 3 Mirage fighter jets that were stationed in Chad on Tuesday, after Chad broke off its defense cooperation agreement with Paris last month. The pair of Mirage 2000D fighters took off after midday from a French base in the capital, N'Djamena, after Chadian military forces came to wish them farewell, and were returning to a French Air Force base in Nancy in eastern France, French military spokesman Colonel Guillaume Vernet said. Chad described its decision to end military cooperation with France as a historic turning point for the country that gained independence in 1960, and said that it would enable Chad to redefine its strategic partnerships in line with national priorities. Chad was one of the last countries in the region in which France maintained a large military presence, having been ousted in recent years from Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso after years of fighting Islamic extremists alongside regional troops. Those countries have inched closer to Russia, which has mercenaries deployed across the Sahel, the vast expanse below the Sahara Desert. France has maintained about 1,000 troops in Chad. Chadian authorities didn't specify when they have to leave. Last week, hundreds of people marched in N'Djamena to call for the withdrawal of French troops, chanting, "Chad for us, France out." Some held banners that read, "We do not want to see a single French person in Chad."